Hi, this is Janey, Imaani, and welcome to Emotional Awareness. And on today's episode, we'll be speaking about suicide and mental illness and how it's not just a first world problem or a white problem, but our problem. So according to the World Health Organization, we know that globally more than 300 million people are suffering from depression, and that every 40 seconds somewhere in the world somebody commits suicide, and that the suicide rates have increased 60% in the last 45 years. And so this has become an increasingly bigger problem in all communities. And I'm so grateful that there's so much more awareness than there was 10 years ago, but I'd like to suggest that we could even be more helpful by tweaking how we speak about suicide and mental health in general. So often when we talk about somebody who's suffering from depression or addiction or suicide, often it's like we see them as those unfortunate people who need help. And it's almost like we feel sorry for them, or sometimes you even hear a sense of pity. It's like we see them as the other and not like us. And I want to suggest that, not only is that not helpful, it's sort of disrespectful, and it drives more disconnection and shame for the person who's going through difficulty. Okay, so let's look at an example. So if somebody says, oh, I don't understand what the point of life is, I can't get out of bed, I don't feel motivated, and that makes you feel very uncomfortable, and so you respond with, oh, maybe you should see a mental health professional because I don't really know how to help you. So what that translates to the other person is that what I'm going through must be so bad that they don't even understand what I mean. So maybe I'm beyond help, I must be messed up. So that drives the I'm so lonely feeling to begin with, which increases the risk of suicide and depression. But instead, if you said, oh, I'm not sure what to say, but I'm glad you told me and I'm here for you, tell me more, which is an example of an empathic response, that will more likely to leave the person feeling connected. And remember, there isn't really anything that you can say or do for them that can really take away their feeling, but giving them a sense of feeling that you understand them and that they are not alone really goes a long way. So this is it. So that's the bottom line, is that empathy fuels connection and pity drives disconnection, which makes them feel worse. And empathy is a very difficult choice to make, because it's hard, right? Because you have to connect to a part of yourself that knows that feeling, right? You would have to be able to connect to your own pain. And so, it's a humbling experience, and that's why a lot of people don't do it. Okay, so let's look at the difference between empathy and sympathy. Empathy is basically, I feel with you, I am with you in this. It's me too. It's saying, oh, whatever you're going through, I could have gone through it too. I'm not above any situation. And so it definitely takes humility. And so sympathy, on the other hand, is I feel for you. I see you over there where, and that really sucks. And I'm glad I'm over here where this kind of stuff doesn't happen. Okay, so let's look at how to practice empathy. So let's begin by looking at the work of Teresa Wiseman and Christine Neff. So there's like 5 or 6 steps that we can use in order to develop empathy for the person who is struggling. So number 1 is staying out of judgment. We practice non-judgment, right? So basically you just hear it, you're just listening. You're not trying to come to any conclusion of how to solve it. And then you have number 2, which is taking the other person's perspective. And so that's when you ask questions like, what does that mean for you? What is that experience like for you? And you're trying to learn more about their situation. And then number 3, you have sort of understanding what you are hearing, and you're sort of trying to touch within yourself what they are trying to say. So this is where a lot of people ask, oh, but how can I have empathy for a situation that I've never been through? So remember, you're not trying to connect to the situation, but the feeling that they are feeling. So if they're going through depression, then they're probably feeling despair. So you have to think of a time in your life where you felt despair. So remember, you want to clarify what you are hearing, because you don't want to jump to any conclusions or make assumptions. And then you have number 4. So this is where you want to communicate your understanding about their emotion. So you might say, oh, you must feel very sad. And they might turn around and be like, no, I don't feel sad, I feel angry. So, don't worry about being wrong, because even if you are wrong, it will move them closer to the emotion that they are feeling, which is, obviously what you want. And number 5, which is practicing mindfulness. So this is really one of the most important ones, because you want to be mindful of your own emotions. So this is not pushing away emotion because it makes you feel uncomfortable, and neither is it sort of over identifying with them and jumping into the dark hole with them because you feel so bad for them. Now you've taken on their problem. So remember, mindfulness is more in the middle. So you have here where you're over identifying with them, and then you have on the other side where you can't even hear them because you've made it your problem. So you want to be sort of more sort of curious and understanding, and know what the boundaries are of where you sort of end and where they start, right? And you want to have some level of separation. And the last one, which I think is really important, is that you need to have some level of trust for their process as well. So if you freak out and you worry too much about them, they're going to feel that too, which makes it more difficult for them to have hope that they will be able to also move away from whatever struggle that they're going through. I also wanted to share Pema Children's quote with you, where she says that compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. It's a relationship between two equals, and only when we know our own darkness well can we be present with the darkness of others, and compassion becomes real when we recognize our shared humanity. I remember when I worked for a suicide hotline, and this was at the very beginning of my career, and honestly it was just a 4-week simple training where all they did was teach us how to have respect for them and not freak out and be curious and show them sort of compassion and love. And till today it always surprises me how that's all I had to do in order to take them away from that panicky feeling. All I had to do was just show them compassion and common humanity, and again I would see that their panic feeling would go away. But the bottom line is that we can only do that if we know ourselves and we know our own pain. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening, and make sure that you subscribe and share with your friends, and take care. Bye.